Welcome to the Stacked Supplement Podcast, the premier source for supplement news and reviews.
We are back with another interview for the Stacked Supplement Podcast, and this time around we have one of the more impressive, I would say newcomer, but it's they're getting up there. They've been around for a little bit now, and it is HR Labs from all the way from the UK, and we have with us the man behind the brand, Liam. Welcome to the show.
Hey Shane, thanks very much for having me on.
So HR Labs hasn't actually been around for that long, has it? It's when I was introduced to it, I don't think it. When you reached out, I don't think you had been on the market for all that long that I can remember.
I think when we first spoke, it might have been a tail end of 2019.
Yeah.
The brand itself had only launched in January 2019.
Okay.
But at that point,
you're coming up 2 years. 2 years now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this January will be the start of year 3.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's I mean, I would say that's still quite young. It's hard to say with brands that come out every week now, but I would say that's still quite young.
Pretty young. And for the first, so we launched in January 2019 with DFib, our pre-workout, and that was pretty much it. We launched with one product, and some CBD oil. We got involved in that category, which is kind of migrated away from the sports nutrition industry now. I think it's kind of its own thing. But
yeah,
we initially launched with the CBD and the pre-workout, and that was pretty much it. For most of 2019, it was only towards the tail end that we started to develop the range and expand and release other products. And that's when I first touched base with you when we were doing
I think the first thing we shared was when you had news of Fever, the fat burner.
Yes.
Yeah, because you had defib, fat burner, and you've kind of expanded into these mainstream categories. But I think the most interesting part with HR Labs is that you're not really it's hard to say. You're not really approaching these categories with your typical formulas, I'd say, and I know that I do say that a lot sometimes, but I would say that's very true with HR Labs. But most notably, when you expanded your lineup, because your pre-workout, the original pre-workout was solid, was well-rounded and quite put together. But it wasn't until we started seeing those other things that I thought that I was like, okay, this is quite an interesting brand, because it was very difficult to tell from the one. But with the likes of Basic and I think Fever, No Code, you really started showing, I guess, a point of difference. And I guess when you're familiar with supplements, it's very obvious when someone's doing something differently.
I think with the pre-workout category, certainly now, even if you are doing something different, it's never that different. You know what I mean? Look, I've got this crazy pre-workout coming out, and you're like, "Oh, what did you do?" And you up a dose of a common ingredient by a couple of grams, or it's difficult to really innovate in that category now because it's literally saturated.
I'm glad you can admit that, though, because there's so many people that I speak to them and they say, "Oh, dude, I know it's crazy saturated," but then the next month they'll be like, "But wait till you see this." And I'll be like, for fuck's sake. It'll be that. It'll be a 10 gram citrulline, or we're using something different here. And I'm like, I mean, it has kind of been, I haven't been surprised by anything in the pre-workout market.
Yeah, no, I think it's difficult to do that. I mean, the one thing that in the UK is quite funny, I think, is that from a UK standpoint, pre-workouts were never really a thing. So, I mean, prior to having HR Labs, I was involved with a company that did distribution for other brands. And literally all the pre-workouts that we sold at that point in time came from the US. For the most part, because there was nothing in the UK, there wasn't any domestic pre-workouts. So it was brands like BSN, Gaspari, Nutrex back, I'm talking back Super Pump days and No Explode days. They were the only pre-workouts that were in the UK market. And the big UK brands at the time were all focusing on proteins, meal replacements, mass gainers, that kind of thing.
I did notice that when I went to the UK for the first time, like 5 years ago, maybe 4, And it was very much like that. It was very pre-workouts were a very small shelf, at least when it came
Yeah,
to local brands. But over the last few years, you guys have really ramped up the competition, I'd say.
yeah, definitely. I mean, there was quite a gulf, I would have said, between the kind of US market and the UK market. But certainly in the last few years, there's a load of brands in the UK that are doing some interesting stuff. And now I think there's some brands that have got some really prominent products that stand out in every category in the UK now, which didn't used to be the case. It used to be looking across to the States for things like that. So that's been really cool. And a lot of the bigger brands that did have a huge foothold in the UK market, a lot of them started kind of focusing primarily on functional foods. So, a lot of the big brands, rightly so, I think, at that point in time, because again, it was an untapped market, but guys like Grenade, who used to be a kind of in the trenches sports nutrition brand,
Thermodetonator was there.
Yeah, that was it. And I mean, they had a full range. They had, their pre's, their intras, their, they had mass gainers, proteins, everything like that. I think they kind of led the way when they started with their bars, their RTDs, energy drinks, and then a lot of the other bigger brands kind of went in that same way. It was all about, supermarket shelves and garage forecourts. And so in the UK, there was this kind of space left where, all right, great, all these brands that we used to use, the gyms used to sell, there's nothing there anymore. There was a gap, certainly, for people doing stuff for, your kind of hardcore guys that train, bodybuilders, strength sports, all that kind of thing. The bigger brands have kind of gone towards the mainstream marketplace. And I think that's where I think HR Labs fits in really well, because we're focused on people that train and people that train hard. It's certainly with a lot of the products like Fever, for example, and like Level Up, our Intra, the price point is beyond what your general kind of consumer is going to want to pay. Not intentionally so, but it's just the formula comes first. Because there's people out there that want to, they want the best product that they can get, or the most effective product they can get in that category, and the fact that it's that little bit more expensive, they're happy to pay for it. And I think in the UK, certainly, again, over the last few years, the average consumer is so much more educated now.
Yeah.
So you'll get guys picking up products, and it's a thing now. Oh, check the panel on that. And I mean, if you go through Instagram and you see the comments from, your normal guys that are going to gym and training, they're saying, holy shit, look at the panel. That was never a thing at all. I'd never heard anybody say that phrase 2 years ago. You'd say to somebody, hey, what do you think of the panel on that? They'd be like, what are you talking about, mate? What's the panel? Like literally they would.
Yeah.
Like and then you go the formula. All right. Oh no, it tastes good. That was it. That would be it, That was all that people were looking for. I think, taste first and foremost, and price. But don't get me wrong, those two things still kind of reign supreme. But certainly people are now picking up a product. They are more educated. I think a lot of that's down to do with brands as well, and social media. There's a lot of good content out there, things that guys like yourself do. It's easier for people to kind of educate themselves and, have an idea of what things are all about. They realize what's a good product and what's a bad product. Whereas, again, I don't think that used to be the case.
Yeah, I would say the UK was kind of, it didn't really follow like that. I saw that kind of transformation in the US maybe 2015, 16, that with when Jim kind of surfaced, the whole label transparency and dosages. People knew what was in this stuff, but they didn't really know, oh, I need that much of this, I need that much. And then that kind of transitioned. And then I guess the UK very much had the same kind of wave over you guys. But the thing I thought was really cool was that in the US, you started seeing different formulas, fully dosed things. You saw a change in a lot of brands. They were like, oh shit, okay, now I got to put in the 6 grams, I got to put in the 3.2 and so on. But in the UK, you guys have reacted quite differently. You've started coming up with very different kinds of pre-workouts. Like it's in the US, you can kind of get you get used to seeing the same kind of stuff. But with
Yeah.
HR Labs, Supplement Needs is another good one that I've liked in the UK. Where these guys are coming out with these formulas that I haven't really seen before, or at least the combination of ingredients. I think
Yeah.
your amino was a great example of that. And even the breakdown of your pre-workouts, how you divided them up with the likes of basic, the whole sort of you kind of daily thing. And it was a unique way of going about it. And it was quite nice to see because, again, I was really used to the same old, like the
I
6
think
grams.
products like basic saturation products, there's so many different performance ingredients now that, again, it kind of all stems off the back of your original workouts, I think, where people would put a sprinkle of this or a sprinkle of that in a prop blend, and that's when people would first know about the likes of beta alanine or betaine or whatever, but they didn't, again, they weren't sure what an effective dose was, the research behind it, and where it really needed to be at. And I think, again, as people have become more educated and brands have started to think, okay, we're going to have to be a bit more transparent here. Something like basic, where generally the clinical dose on beta alanine being 3.2 grams, betaine anhydrous being 2.5, creatine being 5. A lot of people know that now, and they know they should be getting that in every day. And they might be doing so from their pre-workouts, adding other little bits and pieces together. So it just made sense to put it all in one product. And again, it's not like we were the first to do it. We weren't reinventing the wheel. I think there was guys in the States.
There's a couple that
Ghost have got
Ghost Size,
Ghost Power Size. Yeah.
PEF had something similar. They had that Ergo9, I think it was. Where it was kind of like a daily thing where they put the performance, the saturation ingredients in the one.
Yep.
But I mean, it's still at the same time, it's see, with Ghost, when they did it, it kind of like they only have a pre-workout and then they have Ghost Size, which is kind of like a daily thing.
Yep.
You seem to have very purposely broken down your lineup in these sorts of ways, like I guess like defibs your original pre-workout, and then you've had the high stim Riot Act. Everything kind of just seems to have its own place and seems to be structured around things. And
we tried to make to this point everything we've got. We love it if everybody that bought from the brand brought every product, obviously. But we've tried to make, that'd be great. If everybody's spend was the whole thing every month, but we wanted to make everything stackable, so we wanted to make save defib and Riot Act, that you don't want to be stacking them together. You're probably going to have a
I was gonna say you can. How about you run down the lineup, because again, I know a lot of people aren't very familiar with the brand. It's UK based, but because you've only got is it like 6 supplements all up?
Yeah. So I mean, we've got defib, obviously, which is our all-in-one pre-workout. Ticks all the boxes, kind of daily use. We've got Riot Act, which is our most recent release. We just dropped that in December last year. We've been teasing it since August of last year, but it just took a little bit longer to get it to market. And that's our kind of high stim, extreme focus pre-workout with a gram of canna in there, which is a little bit different again. We've got novel stims like Cagellia africana in there, which I think is like something that's used again more prominently so in the UK than it is in the US. It's the actual botanical extract that we use. The synthetic variant and the botanical version are extremely different, So yeah, we've got defib, we've got Riot Act, and then the next product we actually dropped, but for reasons we won't go into, we couldn't make a big splash about it in the US, was Level Up, our intro workout, if you remember. So yeah, we brought out Level Up, which is actually a really cool product. It's a kind of an intra carb, but with loads of kind of performance-based ingredients.
Yeah, see, that was the other
in there as well.
There's another one I thought was interesting, was just that sort of, again, it's the intro workout. Again, it's just a different approach. You didn't just throw carbs. It wasn't just perform. It was again, and it wasn't amino based. That was what I thought. I was surprised at, because usually intra workouts, they are, I mean, typically EAAs and hydration. That's really kind of what you get.
That's
but
really it. Yeah.
you kind of brought
I
back
think a lot of that,
that old school, I would say, back from kind of not necessarily Celtic, but Saison days, where you had these big beefy carb based intras, and that's what Level Up was. I thought it was very interesting to see.
yeah, I probably formulated Level Up for myself, because despite, I mean, I don't compete or anything anymore, you know, but over all the years I trained competitively as a power lifter, I would always use a hell of a lot of carbs. And I was having to go to the US to buy those products, you know, to fuel my training. There was nothing in the UK market really. I'm a big fan of cluster dextrin, a big fan of D-ribose, you know, in terms of volume training and or, you know, training for prolonged periods. And I thought, right, nobody's really doing anything like that. So rather than bringing out another amino, because again, it's a category that's saturated, amino products tend to win out on taste, you know?
Yeah.
And again, you can get an amino product, it's got 10 grams of EAA, 5 grams of branch chains, or there's not a great deal to kind of, you're splitting hairs, aren't you?
Yeah.
Whereas I thought with something like Level Up, certainly in the UK at the time, there was nobody really doing anything like it. Half the reason is probably because it's got a retail value of $54.99.
Yeah.
So
that's I'm assuming that's pounds as well.
yeah. So what's that going to be? Something like
it's more. That's all I know.
$75 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing how much of that stuff that we ship to the US, though, actually through the retail site.
I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of again, it's a very old school category. Like the intra workout market wasn't until Extend came about, I feel, that and Extend basically called itself an intra workout, and then I guess people just started doing aminos with hydration for intra workouts.
Yeah.
Whereas before then it was very carb based, endurance based things that actually like very noticeably powered you through performance wise. And I guess maybe aminos just became synonymous with intra, and that category is, I guess it's almost faded. And it's very difficult to call like Level Up, even though it's an intra workout. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call those amino based the same kind of thing. Like they're both intra workouts, but they're not the same. They're not remotely the same. I think peri workout was the thing that came about. Peri workout was the term that what's his name did, John Meadows, when he did his he did
pre-intro and post.
He did it was intra MD, and that kind of brought back the whole carb fully dosed performance support, and he didn't call it intra. And I think that was, I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he did it. He called it a peri workout, because I guess maybe he didn't want to be roped in with the aminos. But Level Up again is again, it's just, that was just another big one that I think stood out to me as just well put together, well formulated, and not your typical intro, really.
So Level Up, we formulated then to stack that with, if people choose to do so, No Code, which is
that's your amino, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, I mean, we do have ideas in the pipeline to do a more typical kind of amino product, I guess, but we're kind of not going there at the moment, because we don't want to just do the same thing, you know. I really find, especially as a kind of emerging brand, to bring out something that's exactly the same as another 100 products in the marketplace, it's extremely difficult to compete, you know. If it's just the same.
I think it becomes one of those things, though, where, like, I remember a lot of big brands, or brands that are big now, they would say, oh, we don't want to do this and we didn't want to do that. But when they become so popular and so, I guess, in demand, that it's kind of like Redcon 1 when they did their basic lineup. I don't think if I had said to them 3 years ago, you're going to do a basic creatine, it might not have been that interesting. But I guess now that they cover every single category, why not? If the people are going to be buying a basic creatine, then, like you said, they may as well buy it from you. So I guess there are things you kind of have to do. Well, not necessarily have to, but that makes sense even if you don't want them.
Especially if people are, I mean, if somebody's shopping on somebody like Redcon's website and they want a creatine product and the creatine's there, they're going to add it to the cart, you know?
Yeah.
It saves them going elsewhere. They've got like literally the full kind of,
They got everything.
Full shop there. So, you know, they're going to add things to cart. It's just, if having a basics range makes perfect sense, I think, when you've got to that point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but no code. Again, I remember you'd said it at the time, which was quite cool. You hadn't ever seen anything like it before. We were in the amino route with the amino 9, obviously. Compound solutions. I really like that ingredient again. With additional leucine, but what made it different is we added in the 1.5 grams of pica, hydroxypropic acid, and we added in the 750 milligrams of phosphoric acid.
Yeah.
And it was actually whilst trying to flavor that product that I realized why nobody else had ever done it before.
Yeah,
because it's only ever in capsule form that you tend to find those high doses of pica and PA, because they do taste awful. They really taste bad. But fortunately, we managed to mask it, you know. And what we've got there, I think, is a really well-rounded MPS product, you know. So that's, again, we've kind of, rather than market it as an intro, as an amino, we've marketed it as more as a muscle protein synthesis product, because that's what it is. And again, it's proven MPS through different pathways, which I thought was quite cool, because people normally just go down the amino route and exclusively, and that's it. So it's something that's been pretty well received as well. And it's something I always think, if you can use a product for a month or so and you actually notice the difference from it, then it's worth your money, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Even if it is, again, it's got that slightly higher price point, but you could buy a product for half the price, and it's like flavored water, you know. It's got 5 grams of branched chain amino acids in it, and it tastes like your favorite drink. And I've never seen the point in products like that, and I can't understand why a consumer would want to waste their money on products like that.
I think it's the price point used to be a problem. I had this discussion with one of the guys that worked with Chemix and Black Magic, and his discussion was about that premium supplements. And I had this, wasn't necessarily an argument, but I said to him, the reason I think people have trouble trusting is because while there are brands now that sell you pre-workouts for like 60 US or 50 US, the guys that used to do that actually put dog shit in there. They didn't, and there were brands who did these expensive supplements way back.
Yep.
And they were just, the money went to marketing, the money went to the packaging, and the formulas weren't there to justify the price. And so I can imagine how a consumer would be like, they would get confused, because again, this is 60, that's 60. One's got really good ingredients, one doesn't. And if you're not familiar, it's hard to tell. Whereas now I think it's different. Brands like HR, you can charge that price point, and there's a huge audience. And again, in the US, I think it's very common now to see a pre-workout 45, 50. Some I've seen at 60. Apollon does a 65. Which those are back, what, 3-4 years ago? You wouldn't have seen that. You wouldn't have seen that.
I think, again, it's like with prop blends disappearing, you can justify the price point, because you can say, well, look, this is exactly what's in it, you know. And certainly in the UK, I think the US is very much the same. You know, if something's GMP, manufactured in a GMP facility, in the UK, we've got ISO 9001 and British Retail Consortium accreditation. So if you go to factories that are GMP, ISO 9001 and BRC rated, then it's almost a guarantee that, you know, what's on the labels in that tub, because they're audited on such a regular basis. They can't, fleece you. No, they can't underdose it or whatever. You know, they've got batches get pulled at random, get tested. I mean, I know a lot of brands also batch test their own stuff now, you know, to have those test results, those lab results there, so that people can see them, so they know they're being transparent and straight up. And I think that's a great thing, because there's for a long time you'd be competing against brands that, you know, had prop blends or whatever. You knew fine well that what was in that tub and what was on that label were like completely different. But, you know, I mean, people would call them out potentially, but as another brand, you would never do that because it just looks like sour grapes or whatever, but it was frustrating. And I think now that that's kind of disappeared, it's a far more level playing field, If somebody comes in and puts something on a label and then you take it, it's a pre-workout and it totally blows your head off and whatever, they're going to get found out pretty quick.
So
that's only got 100 mgs of caffeine in there. Wow, that smacks hard. You just don't get it anymore, do you?
I've had that kind of feeling. I remember there's a couple brands in the past that have sent me beta samples, and I was like, "Oh my god, this shit is amazing!" Right, and blew me away. And then and there was the first one that did it to me. And they said that the final version was the same as the beta, and I was like, "Cool, don't need to try the final version." And then I learned a valuable lesson that you should always check the final version versus the beta, because whether it's production differences or whatever, there's some huge differences. And I've tried some where I'm just like, this doesn't even feel like the same damn thing. The powder doesn't even look the damn same either. But it's it gets different. So how was the 2020 for you? Because obviously the UK, you guys had a tough time. I think a lot of countries had a tough time, obviously.
Well, we're still going through it right now. So we've
April 14th, though, isn't it? Or
April 12th is the preliminary date for gyms reopening. So gyms have been closed since Boxing Day. Since
didn't even get the
26th of December. And then last year we got locked down in March, and that was gyms closed from March the 23rd right through until July the 4th, I think it was. So for the best part, 4 or 5 months. And then we were only open again for a few months. Things were just beginning to get back to relative normality in industry terms. And then we were shut down again for the whole of November, complete lockdown, everything closed. But they went as far as in the UK, a lot of it depended on which council or which kind of district you fell within. Some of the supplement stores were allowed to stay open because they had a kind of understanding council and trading standards body, and they would be, okay, you're a food reseller, that's great. But other councils in certain cities, they were shutting down the supplement stores as well. So literally overnight, as a brand, your kind of your retail avenues were completely taken away from you. You just had online sales, and that was it. And then unfortunately, again for the gyms and the supplement stores, they were shut down entirely. And unless a lot of the supplement stores acted quickly and moved online, which was great to see. So they did adapt, but it was a pretty shitty year. We came out of the blocks. We had Level Up in the November 2019, and then January it was Fever. March was no code. April was supposed to be basic, and then we got locked down completely, and that was it. We didn't launch because no code had literally launched the week that we got locked down. So we were like, here's this new product, and then it was just like everything's shut. I was like, oh shit, that wasn't really the launch that we wanted. But so we had to be kind of cautious, and that's why for the last from that point forth we did eventually drop basic in May, and then again just when we were starting to build momentum, and we first teased Riot Act at the Stacked Expo in August. It was supposed to come out straight off the bat, and then there was rumors again that everyone was going to shut down, and we thought, well, we don't want to invest a significant amount of money in a pre-workout, especially a high stim pre-workout, when folk are stuck in their house training with exercise bands and ankle weights.
I tried the at home shit for like we did it for like a week. It was like, no, we can do this, and then I was like, no, and then I just sat on my ass, gained weight for 12 weeks.
Well, I was adamant that I wasn't going to spend a fortune on it. I don't know what it was like elsewhere, but in the UK, one of the best things that's ever happened to equipment manufacturers is the pandemic. I mean, because the sales of home gym kit and even commercial gym kit. I mean, I've seen some guys furnish their garages with stuff that, big gyms would be envious of. It went crazy, but people started taking the piss, and you'd be getting like, oh, how much is the barbell? The barbell be a basic barbell that normally cost you £100, and it was there at £500. And I thought I wasn't getting involved in that, and I stuck to my guns to a point. But then again, being fortunate enough that I've got friends that own gyms and things, I pulled a few favors. So by the end of May, I had a barbell, a couple 100 kilos of plates and some stuff that we could actually do a bit. And then I hung on to that. And then when we've been locked down again, we've actually now downstairs got a full power rack.
Oh, wow.
Commercial bench. We've changed the reception room in the house. It's now a gym pretty much, so because if I can't, I was getting twitchy. If I can't train for a period of time, I started getting
I was sad mostly because we were locked down from March. I think we were locked down similar time frame to you the first time in New Zealand, because we had to come back. We were in Europe at the time. We were from March to May, I believe. And it was I was locked down from early March to late May, and then gyms didn't kind of open until. But when we were locked down, we couldn't buy anything online. We couldn't order. They did
right. Okay.
So I wanted to, but when they said they were going to lock down on Wednesday, I was like, you know what? I'll go order myself a gym. And sure as shit, everyone else had the same idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were like, no, we don't have this in stock. And I was like, fuck. And so I was driven, but it just didn't last when you don't have weights to lift and you just.
No, that's it.
But that's again, exactly we only had the one lockdown, so I haven't had the unfortunate opportunity to go in again. But
the UK's version of lockdowns is funny, like you say, like you're saying, you couldn't buy anything, whereas lockdown first time around here, you had 700 flights coming into Heathrow every day, despite the fact the country was locked down, and people were still, traveling about, going to work. You could go if you wanted to do so. You could, you'd go to the supermarket, go to the shops, do this, do that. The next thing, it was quite lax, and I think that's why we're now still paying for it.
We were fortunate because we're an island. And we've only got what?
But remember, we're an island as well.
But you're a much more important island. we're not that. We're in the middle of nowhere with 5 million people.
I suppose
it was, and we closed off flights. What the few that were coming in each day? You said you have hundreds. Ours wasn't that big of a deal, but it was painful. But I'm glad that HR Labs is. We're still pushing through, because again, you launch products throughout the year. Riot Act finally hit, which I'm still interested to try. It was a solid year again, despite everything that went on.
We were really fortunate that we launched obviously the year prior, because I mean, if we'd launched January 2020, I mean, I don't think I don't know that we'd have made it. Because I mean, I know. But that being said, a good friend of mine, Clint, that you'll know, that owns Naughty Boy.
Oh yes,
those guys launched in literally like
they launched was what the
November,
last
December.
I thought they announced and launched themselves in like November or December. I don't think product would roll out until late December, like early January.
Exactly. So they literally had 2 months of having Ennis on the market, and then
about it. Yeah, they actually only were around for the lockdown.
That was it. Yeah, they launched. They literally launched, and so absolute testament to them, because that has scared the shit out of me if I'd launched my brand then.
They launched, and it was November, because they hit me up in November. They launched November, December, and then rolled out January. So they would have launched full confidence and 100% effort, not knowing what was coming, which is the best thing to do.
Exactly.
So yeah, now that I think about it, they kind of timed that, pretty well. And it's actually amazing how much they grew or managed to expand in that time. Now that I think about it, because we had nominated them for Newcomer of the Year, because Glaxon was another one that kind of rolled out in December, pretty much the same time as Naughty Boy, and they've done a phenomenal job at expanding as well. But it's it was crazy watching. It was surprising to me seeing how much brands still did in such an uncertain time. Because for me, I was like, I'm going to be taking time off. I'm not going to be doing anything. There's nothing happening. And it was like the first week of lockdown. I was like, what the hell's going on? These guys are on fire. First month, Sweden was booming. It was like they had a new flavor, functional food, protein something every day, and I was like, okay. And then you hear that how they were handling the lockdowns a little bit differently, and I was like, and then the rest of Europe kind of followed suit. Then the US kind of just piled it on. I didn't have any break, but it was fun at the same time. But
but you didn't get the holiday you wanted.
No, but when I didn't get a holiday, but because I didn't do any exercise, it was kind of like an extra hour and a half of my day. So it was kind of nice. That was my holiday.
That was your break.
Per se. Wasn't the holiday I intended, because we were scheduled to be in the UK and Europe for 4 months. So it was
I'd remember, because we were gonna catch up, and
yes.
Yeah, that never happened.
I now have vouchers for all across Europe and the UK. Which I'm praying stay okay. But that was So you've filled out your line pretty well so far. You've got the pre-workouts, the daily performance supplement, the amino. It still seems that HR Labs is sticking to those, I guess I would like to say mainstream areas, but you're doing different kind of things. Like you said, your amino wasn't necessarily promoted as amino. Your intra isn't exactly the intra we're used to seeing. Do you see the brand still as you move forward? And of course, I imagine there's plenty of things in the works with a brand like HR. I suspect you've got like 3 or 4 that you just don't want to say anything.
I can say a little bit. We've got Ride On, which is capsule product with the maca, the Vaso 6, the black ginger extract, the pomegranate in the capsule product, which we announced the formula for you guys.
Yes, I think I did
last month, maybe.
Yes, we did.
Last month. So that again, that was ready for launch. And it's not so much the fact that we haven't launched it because of
I was going to say, no wonder I haven't heard anything more or hadn't heard an update on it, because I was like, oh, you would have got that was during lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was all scheduled to be kind of launched in February. That was ready to rock. But then with Brexit, it's caused a hell of a lot of disruption. Really, at the moment, getting anything into Europe is an issue. And there's a massive backlog kind of internationally. So any non-domestic stuff, coming over, be it from the States or raws coming from China and stuff, there's massive delays. So Ride On, we were planning on, and still hopefully are going to manage to bring to market next month. But it's actually getting the materials were ordered, and they're still not here yet. So that's kind of what's kind of disrupted that. But everything, from distribution into Europe, all my kind of guys in the industry that I'm friendly with, that the import, that have distribution retail kind of partnerships with brands in the States, or other brands that are trying to get stuff out into Europe to distributors out there. It's just an absolute nightmare. Like, it's just
I noticed that because there was a few online stores that I usually shop through in the UK to pick up my UK stuff, and there's a couple that I saw, and first time I went in there, I had the banner across the top, orders no longer shipping to Europe, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
So something's happened.
Because literally everybody thought, oh, there's this trade deal, this is great, so it's going to be like normal. And for the first kind of week or so in January, everybody just acted as if, well, this trade deal's in place, it's all good, it's sorted, and kept on shipping. And what the reality is that the media knew about the trade deal, and there's this supposed agreement, which I'm sure is in place, but nobody told the countries that we were exporting to that this trade deal was in place, evidently, because customs were stopping stuff. There was loads of issues surrounding paperwork, customs clearance, things were getting returned, things were getting seized. It was just been an absolute nightmare.
Oh, shit. No wonder.
I know brands that have got like tens of £1,000s worth of stock sat at borders, and it's literally just red tape upon red tape and paperwork issues and back and forth to try and get these things sorted. So,
oh damn, yeah, I assumed it was something very bad if like UK retailers would just straight up not send into the Europe, because I remember speaking to a few beforehand, and they were saying they hope something is worked out because Europe makes up a lot of their business. Both European brands that they stock and people they sell to in Europe, and so that's
I think a lot of it might be, obviously there's a huge portion of Europe at this point in time in some sort of lockdown.
Yeah, that's
so that coupled with Brexit, I think it's just been like overload. You got to think, if these customs guys, if they're working on minimal staff because they've got people working from home and all that kind of thing, like in the UK, it's the vast majority of places, certainly at the moment, are on skeleton staff. So there's big problems, and you've not got the same team there to fix it. It's gonna take a while. I think when relative normality resumes with the lockdowns being eased, I think then Brexit issues might start to be worked through, and any teething problems will hopefully disappear as well.
I actually might have had experience, because when I was in the Czech Republic, I imported something from the US, and I thought it was going to be easy, and it sure as shit wasn't, because they sent me, it was a pre-workout, but in it they threw in a free shaker and a free hat, and because they weren't customs weren't overly communicative, they were like, we need to know what's in the package. And I said, it's on the label, it should be on the invoice, like when they shipped it over. And he was saying, what's actually in the pre-workout? And I gave them the list of ingredients, and then they opened it and they said, no, you're wrong. There was a hat and they called it, they had their description for shaker was something different, so they shipped it right back. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I was like, people said put free stuff in packages all the time. I didn't think it was.
That's it. Well, I know.
So I imagine that the red tape that people are going through now might be similar, if not worse, than that. Just the difficulty, and that's on an individual
even a retail
basis.
order. If somebody buys a pre-workout from, say, France, and then you, without thinking, put that pre-workout, and then you throw a couple of samples of another product, but then you don't list those samples on the customs declaration, and it gets inspected, and there's a couple of free samples there, then that's enough for that product to be shipped straight back. That's the kind of
that was. Since then, I was like, you know what? We're only going to buy stuff from the UK. We'll buy it all from within Europe if we get anything. Yeah. So now I'm hearing that if I go there, hopefully it'll be better by the time I get back, because it was. So the ride-ons, obviously the pump formula you guys have coming out, and that's still very much workout based. Is that kind of one of the goals?
I don't know. Ride-on.
It's a blood flow.
It's
you explained this to me.
It is a pump product, but it's so much more. It's obviously with maca with black ginger. Black ginger being a PDE5 inhibitor, so often used or touted as a natural alternative to Viagra or erectile dysfunction medication. But that being said as well, There's loads of benefits. Studies now showing how it can improve immune health, energy output, general kind of vigor. Maca is very much the same. Maca's got studies showing improvements in endurance, strength, again, sexual vigor. Vaso 6, I love. I think it's Vaso 6 and is really well regarded these days. Most people know or are aware of it, certainly. Generally, you see it dosed, or certainly had been seeing it dosed at 300 milligrams, because all the kind of initial research had been done on that smaller amount. But then anecdotally, when I was using it, having spoke to Matt and some guys over in the US, they were saying, we'll try it at a higher dose. I found that once you get up to about a gram, that's where things really start to happen. I'm not a runner, and I was actually chatting to Matt Nickerson, the guy behind Vaso 6. I don't run, but again, because of lockdown, I was like, well, I'm going to start crazy sitting in the house, so I'm going to start running. I mean, I'm 230 pounds and 5'8". I'm not really built to run, so I started running a little bit. I was kind of building up from managing to crawl a couple of hundred meters from the front door to to doing a 5K and whatever, and then I hadn't run for about a month or two, and this is whilst I was trialing Ride On, and I was taking in addition to the Ride On kind of formula, I was also supplementing with another 300 mgs of Vaso 6. So I was taking 1300 mgs of Vaso 6 every day, and then when we got locked down again in November, I thought, right, I've not run for a couple of months now again, because I've been back and been able to train. I was doing weights, which I enjoyed doing, and I went out for a run just off the cuff, thinking, Christ, if I couldn't even kind of get away from my front door the first time I did it, I don't have a hope in hell. And I went and I ran for an hour and 20 minutes, and I did like 11K, which is like 6 miles. And I was like, I could have kept going. And I thought, there's nothing else that I could have said was different within because I'm pretty structured. I eat the same shit every day. My training fluctuates a little bit. At the weekend, I relax a little bit, but that's all standard. So within a 7-day period, that's what I do. And the only thing I could think that was different was Ride On, and the fact that I managed to go and run for 10K, come back, wasn't gassing. Normally I feel like I'm going to die. The next day, don't get me wrong, I had a load of DOMs and things like that just from being relatively heavy and running. I felt like I'd been squatting and deadlifting or something. But I thought I wonder if that was just a fluke. So 2 days later, I went out and I did the same thing again. And I was like, that's crazy. Stopped taking it completely, because I actually used the kind of beta samples that had been supplied from the manufacturer. So I'd stopped taking it. I thought, I'm going to knock the Vaso 6 on the head entirely as well. And then went for a run in January. And after 5K, I was absolutely fucked. Couldn't keep going. Flagged entirely. And now I've not been taking Vaso 6. And I've not been taking Ride On. So I've not been taking Vaso 6, black ginger, the pomegranate, or the maca root in combination. I've not been taking any of it, because obviously I'm just waiting now until we get to get the product out to market. And my endurance and my recovery from kind of anaerobic exercise is plummeted.
Interesting. So now because I remember when you mentioned it to me, you said you weren't sure how you wanted to pitch the dosing, because you were saying like take it twice a day, and I was like, that makes sense now, because the thing is, once you put Vaso 6 or you just put pump on the product, it was kind of like Apollon when they recently announced that they're doing a testosterone booster. Well, they're doing it's a hormone optimization supplement. I was like, you got to call it a test booster. Like, I understand that there are other benefits to it, but it's difficult. If you want to communicate something in as short as possible, you've got to use the word that they can connect with the best. And I think you're right with but it sounds almost like it's more of a performance formula, an endurance
Well,
kind of.
I think, I mean, obviously with Vaso 6, the cardiovascular kind of health aspect to it, you know, again, I think I'm a big fan of black ginger extract. Again, having used it myself, and it was the amount of research behind that now. Yeah, and again with with kind of immune function, cardiovascular health, the kind of mitochondrial benefits and everything, energy production. You know, it's so multifaceted that the only reason I can think that people don't use it is because it's so expensive. I mean, it's about 4 and 5 times as expensive as your kind of standard kind of patented ingredient. I mean, it's way up at over $1,000 a kilo. You know, so it's extremely expensive for the kind of higher standardization. If you do see it, you generally see the standardization at about 5% because that's the more affordable. But again, if you're using 100 megs that's standardized to 5%, you're only getting 5 milligrams of active ingredient there. You know, all the research doses are between 60 and 100. So that's why we've gone with the 20% standardization in the 300 megs. So you're getting the 60 milligrams in there, which is at the lower end of what's been shown to be beneficial. But then all those studies were obviously done on black ginger extract in isolation, whereas we're using it in combination with the Vaso 6, the pomegranate and the maca. But that, it's going to take a little bit of education, that product, I think, because like you say, you kind of need to put it in a category. But if you put it in a category and you say, yo, it's a pump product, but then again, it's going to be at that higher price point because the dosages are so high. And because the ingredients we've used, I mean, it's other than the bioperin and nitrogen in there, obviously, but the kind of 4 main active ingredients are dosed right up, you know, at the kind of higher end. We've got the full, 2,100 milligrams of maca, which is of lopinamax, sorry, which is the kind of clinical dose there as well. So it is almost a few different products combined into one.
I think Morphogen has a supplement. I can't remember that. I think it might be Morpho Pump, and that's kind of, it's a daily blood flow product. And obviously, when you improve blood flow, comes many benefits such as cardiovascular performance and all that stuff. And I think the one of the reasons he was able to do, or Morphogen was able to do theirs and communicate theirs so well, was because they had a pump pre-workout already with Volugen. And so it was very clear, I think, to his consumers or his fans that Volugen was the pump pre-workout. And when he released the second pump supplement, he was able to, well, I guess I need to know the difference because why do you have two? And I think
exactly.
And he communicated very much like you were talking about with your one. That was his point of difference with that one, was that it's more of a daily thing to enhance blood flow around the clock rather than and he also had that question about, well, what if I just take both servings with Volugen before my workout? And look, you can do that, but the point was this. So it's very much like you were saying. So I guess it'll be trickier because you don't necessarily have that full blown, I guess, dedicated pump pre-workout yet. But
well, that's the other thing. So we have been working on something since June of last year, but unfortunately the rolling lockdowns, they obviously have an impact on how quickly your manufacturing partner can get samples to you and things like that as well, because they were getting closed and opened and staff furloughed and staff back in and whatever. So the sampling process took a lot longer than it normally would. And we went down one route with it, and it was going to be impossible to get it to taste right. This is a powdered format, so it's kind of more standard, powdered pump pre-workout, and it just tasted like shit. And we must have gone back and forward. But there's certain ingredients at certain dosages that no matter how hard you try or how much
did in street,
your flavoring guy's a genius. It's just like it tastes like shit. It tastes like shit. You know what I mean? And so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board on that. And as we did, the product itself started to kind of take on a different different kind of shape entirely. And now what we have ready to bring to market again, Ride-On's going to be hopefully next month, worst case scenario, April. This powdered pump product's going to follow in May, all going well. We'll be able to start kind of teasing that out soon. But it's pretty cool, and it's different, which I think with the pump product, again, it's as much as it's not your kind of straight up pre-workout category. You know, there's quite still a lot of innovation and things going on there with certain ingredients. You do now seem to see brands following a certain structure. You know, leading off the bat with the citrulline and then you'll get your more, you know, your more kind of specific pump ingredients. You know, people will choose their S7, their Vaso 6, their mental pump, or whatever else they might want to put in there, you know. But we've kind of gone a little bit out there with it. So it'll be interesting to see how it's received.
Interesting.
That's all I can say.
Interesting. Well, like I said, you guys have put together some solid stuff. The pump category is a personal favorite of mine. I've been a fan of that one ever since I think it was Ghost Pump came out with one of my favorite one right now. But yeah, well, it was great chatting to you. It was awesome to connect finally and hear all about the brand and what little you want to share about what's coming soon. But we can end it there, and definitely keep me in the loop on Ride-On. I'm excited to see that one finally come to market.
Yeah, Ride-On should be ready ready next month, worst case scenario, April. And the other product that we've got coming out, which isn't really a secret, is a more basic carb product that can be stacked with Level Up. It's an intra-carb. It's literally called Carb Up. And it's an intra-carb cluster dextrin based. But the one criticism we've had from bigger guys with Level Up is that there's only 30 grams of carbohydrates in there. And it being such an expensive product, people don't want to start using 4 and 5 scoops of Level Up because one, they don't need to with the other actives in there, you know, just to get the carb content. If you start using that, it's going to be the most expensive intro workout they've ever used in their life, you know. So we thought, what can we do about it? So that's where Carb Up's come in. So Carb Up's going to be a stackable product that you can, you know, if you want an extra scoop of carbs, 2 scoops of carbs, you can put that in with your Level Up. And if you're on a budget, it's going to come in, you know, at a far more affordable price point. So that's ready to rock as well. It's just being kind of sat waiting in the wings whilst these lockdowns do their thing. So,
well, you've only got what's potentially 6 more weeks, I believe.
6 weeks. 6 weeks if the government stick to their plan. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Well, fingers crossed, because again, I want to get back over there when I can. And either way, I'm looking forward to the supplement launches. We'll definitely have to get you back on at some point, but thank you for taking the time and chatting.
Nice one. Perfect. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it.